Hey, it's Jeff with Treeline Sports, and welcome back to another edition of Mil Surp Rifle Series. And today we're going to be discussing the Swedish rifle. I have two examples of Swedish rifles today in the era, and they are M38s. This is a shorter rifle, or a carbine rifle, that was developed by Sweden. Both of the examples that I have are M38s. Now, one M38 I have is a straight bolt, and the other I have is a bent bolt. The straight bolt was a 96, which was the longer rifle that was produced and then cut down. So if you have one of these rifles that has a straight bolt, it was originally an M96 cut down. The M38 that was designed as an M38 has a bent bolt, and I'll show you what that looks like. It's the example here on the stand. I'll bring it up close. So here we have the M38 with the bent bolt, and this rifle was actually designed as a carbine rifle. This rifle shoots a 6.5 by 55 Swedish round, and today you can find this manufactured by many manufacturers, including Winchester, Federal, PPU, and others. I have an example of all these cartridges, which I'll bring up. Now, originally the Swedish rifle was designed to shoot about 160 grain bullet, 159 thereabouts. For the war era, they used 139 grain bullets. So you'll find a lot of these bullet heads to be in the 139 grain version, which is correct for this length rifle and will do very well for you. I wouldn't use the heavier round unless it's extremely short yardage because of the balance and so forth of the rifling that's designed for that round. You want to stick with the 139 or lighter. Now, let's go over the gun. If we look at the bolt, before we do that, I want to discuss what in the heck am I wearing today. So, what I have on is a bandolier of 6.5 by 55 Swedish ammo. This was for a machine gun that was belt fed, but what's oddly noticeable, you'll see these red bullet heads. These red bullet heads were actually made out of wood. Now I can't tell you honestly what type of wood it is, but they are in fact wooden. These were essentially blanks that were used for training or drills that the Swedish would have done in preparation. So give you a close-up shot of one. They look like that. So exactly the same length of cartridge, exactly the same length of bullet, but made out of wood. Now, if you look at your rifle that you have, or if you're interested in buying one of these guns, you'll typically find the muzzle to be threaded. And that was threaded and designed for this blank. This example that I have does have an aftermarket flash hider on it. This is just a screw in. You can unscrew this. A lot of times you'll even find caps that are screwed onto here. But note, if you look closely, you will see a gap between the barrel and the actual flash hider. And what that would have been for, if I unscrewed that and put the, shown the threads, there was a device that would have been threaded on for the blanks, and essentially the wood would not have projected except for out of the sides of this adaptation piece. So neat way of doing it. Never seen this on any other rifle before. I don't know of any other rifle that you'll find a wooden bullet for. I could be wrong, but I believe it's the only one. Some people call them vampire bullets, but they really don't project. They, could they penetrate? Possibly. It is a lighter charge in these bullets, mainly just for the sound purposes. But note, if you see one of these, that's what it is. Now, the model M38 essentially stands for 1938. And these guns were produced by three primary manufacturers, that being Carls Gustaf, Husqvarna, and Mauser of Obendorf. Swedish manufacturing specs did require specific metal requirements when they built these guns for high quality, and you'll never find one of these bolts corroded. And one of the reasons is because they required vanadium to be added to the mix when producing these bolts, which prevents corrosion. And Swiss provided that metal material even to Germany at the Obendorf plant to manufacture these rifles. So these rifles typically are always, metal-wise, are always in beautiful shape. And you'll rarely find one that has a bad bore. Typically these bores are fantastic. Wood, I've seen them everything from beat up to beautiful. The two that I have, one being a Carl Gustaf and the other being the Husqvarna, both Swedish manufacturers. Both of the ones I have to present to you today are in absolutely phenomenal condition. Now, since we're talking about condition, I want to talk about this disc. This disc that you'll find on the stock of any of these rifles tells you what the condition was at the time that the inspector last looked at the gun. And essentially this disc is broken up into 3 pie shapes. I'm going to give you a close-up, handwritten. You might want to take a snapshot that'll help explain these discs. I wouldn't put too much weight on this when purchasing one of these because, hey, this was the last time the gun was looked at. Could have been 1945, could have been, who knows, but it was done by the inspector in Sweden. So there's a chance that it may not be in that specific condition, or because this disc is in fact removable, you know, it could have been removed and swapped out with a different disc. So I wouldn't put too much weight in it, but really neat to know the history of the gun, and most likely it is the disc of your firearm. But note that it can be changed out relatively easily. So let me bring up a handwritten note that'll help you decipher exactly what this disc means. Stand by. Okay, so here I have, please excuse my handwriting. This is kind of a blow up of the disc itself, if you can read it. I'm going to back that up for snapshot purposes. Feel free to snapshot that. And again, excuse my handwriting. But essentially, not to scale by any means, the largest portion, and you'll notice these are broken out, if you think of it as a pie, they're broken out into 3 separate wedges. The top wedge, or the largest pie, and it could be turned in any direction, by the way, it doesn't matter what direction your pie is in. But the largest direction is the bore diameter. The one that I have is, and you'll note also, before I get into that, there's these little triangles. And these little triangles, if they're on top of the number, indicate what number the inspector would have given it. And if you see a number with an arrow directly below it, this would have been a downgraded inspection. So had it been a 2, for example, and then the inspector felt it was a 3, they would have had that little arrow going down, and they would have downgraded the bore or what have you. So biggest part is bore diameter. These were measured in 4/10 of 4 thousandths apart. And then we have this 1, 2, 3 section is bore overall condition, or the amount of rust. And as I said, 9 times out of 10 you'll find these to be a 1. I honestly have never seen a rusted out Swedish rifle, but I guess it can happen. And then this 3rd section right here is overstreck, or it's the holdover. Now this section rarely has a marked off. It was rarely used, but what that is the holdover in your sight picture of how to hold the firearm, whereabouts it would be. And that was measured typically using 139 grain boat tail, and 0.1 would equal 1 inch at 100 yards approximately. Again, meters to inches, there could be a deviation in there. I'm sure you mathematicians out there will correct me, but feel free to do so. Entertain all comments. Love to have you guys comment. But anyway, that's what that disc is all about. I'm going to bring up the Carl Gustaf rifle, and as you can see, this gun has a straight bolt. And a straight bolt essentially means that this gun was originally a 96 or a longer rifle and then cut down. If we look at the muzzle on this gun, you'll notice it is not threaded. And it is equipped with a hooded sight. Swedish troops would have been issued this gun with a bayonet, cleaning kit, cleaning rod, and by the way, this is your cleaning rod. If you unthread this, it'll pull out and it will act as your cleaning rod. Now, these are not a gangable rod, meaning you and your buddy could not piece yours together to make a longer rod, which you'll find in a lot of Mil Surp guns. This one will not do that. And typically what I found is it's just quite not long enough to make it all the way through. So I suggest when you clean these guns, use a modern kit and really give them a good, scrub outing of the bore. These are great kits. Don't take it out, leave it in there. It helps with the overall value of the gun. And since we're talking about value, I did want to talk briefly about serial numbers as well as crowns you'll find in this gun. The Carl Gustaf crowning you'll find, let's see if I can get it close enough to the camera. I don't know if you can see it, but the crown is completely straight up and down or perpendicular. If we look at a Husqvarna crown, they're slightly tilted or at a 45-degree tilt. So if you have a Husqvarna and a part on it somewhere has a tilted crown, it's not correct. Not a big deal, won't affect the function of the gun. I'm just telling you what should be on the gun. So note that. Good to know if you're in the market to buy one of these. Always good to know that you're purchasing something that's in the overall original condition and then helping the overall value of the piece. This gun is also equipped with a micrometer sight. These sights were not typical of what you will find on an M96 or an M38. I've done a lot of research on these. I'm by no means an expert, but from what I have found, this sight was post-war. It was added post-war, not a wartime sight. I could be wrong. I've only read that in Google. I have no factoids of that. Would love if somebody has knowledge that's deeper than mine, which certainly is not hard to do. Let me know if this micrometer sight is in fact a wartime issued piece. But anyway, for you folks that don't know what that is, what this will allow you to do is make fine-tune adjustments to your tangent sight. Instead of squeezing the sides and sliding up and down, making 100-meter adjustments or 50-meter adjustments, this will allow you to make 10-meter adjustments. Very, very fine-tuned. We just spin that, it'll click and stop, and that'll allow you to make a fine-tuned elevation adjustment. Now, as most Mil Surp guns go, this gun does not have a way to easily adjust windage. Windage was typically done at the factory and you lived with it. If this was issued to you as a troop, you wouldn't mess around with windage. You were given the gun as accurate it possibly would be out of the factory. Now, I gotta say, all three of those manufacturers, if it came out of those plants, it's probably going to be pretty much right on. So I wouldn't say that they would have been issued a gun that would have been off. So just know that if you have a gun, probably not a good idea to mess around with windage or change the blade. You can change the front sight blade, and of course the taller the front sight, the shorter range you will be zeroed in at using 100 meters. So if you really, really want to, you can pop that off, put a taller blade in, and get zeroed in at 100. We're having a little bit of a spritz today. I'm going to shut down and come back. Now, hopefully the weather will hold out for us today. Did get a little spritz there. Anyway, since we're talking about markings, the Finns actually purchased a lot of these rifles. And this gun was in fact used during World War II by the Finnish. So note that if you find an SA mark, which was the typical stamping for Finland Armory, you have a rifle that could have been in World War II. So yes, these guns were used in World War II, obviously not by the Swedish, but by the Finns. Extremely accurate gun. You'll see these a lot in competition today. And this round is a very flat shooting cartridge. Now, a lot of people may not know what that means. By flat shooting, we're talking about the trajectory. And if you could look at the bullet in slow motion, and I'm going to exaggerate, say you were shooting from here to here, and this spread being 500 yards, the bullet will travel, if you imagine throwing a football for that touchdown pass way down in the end zone, 30 yards down, you have to throw it at a high angle and then reach your target like this. A bullet is very similar, of course, not that exaggerate, but it will travel on an arc. The 6.5 by 55 Swedish cartridge is very, very flat. They call it the equivalent to a 270 cartridge, which is one of the flattest shooting cartridges today, as well as obviously the 6.5 Creedmoor, which is somewhat of a copy of this round, very similar in design, and known for light recoil, accuracy, and hard hitting. And that's what this gun offers you. You'll still find this gun used on medium-sized game today, and it is very, very accurate and hard hitting. So, and a light recoil. Great gun for a new shooter. Great gun for you taking a kid out, you want him to learn how to shoot. I would highly recommend this gun for that purpose, or even somebody that wants to go hunting and just can't handle a lot of recoil, say from 7mm mag or so forth. This is a really good equivalent. Not a good gun for heavy game or dangerous game, but whitetail on down certainly do the trick. Anyway, I think that covers pretty much everything. I do want to go over the cleaning kit with you and show you an example of that. So here we have a Swedish cleaning kit. Now in here I don't have a full kit. A lot of these have been lost over the years, and a lot of the parts that would have come with it would have been lost. But what I do have is the original Swedish oiler and solvent bottle. And just to give you a close-up look of what this would have looked like, kind of neat. One tube would have had your oil or your grease, and the other tube would have had your solvent or degreaser. And what's kind of neat about these, they put a little chain on the caps. So in the field, and we all know it, when you take something off, you lose it. We'll go ahead and take this off. Take this off, you don't lose your cap. So pretty cool. Just thought I'd show it to you and what one would look like in person. If you find one of these, keep it with your gun. Not a big value item, but kind of neat to have. There's also a bayonet lug on the M38, and that would have allowed obviously a bayonet to slip on. I do not have an example of that, but I can tell you it's an all metal bayonet, including the handle itself, and they are extremely sharp. It's a double edged bayonet for penetration purposes, and they do also have the crown on them as well. Now, a lot of modern manufacturers have adopted the 6.5 55 Swede, and you'll still find them in production today, as well as ammunition. So ammunition for this gun today, like most ammo today, it's hard to find, but I would add it's not going to be impossible. And here you see an example, Winchester. That's actually a Federal round. There's a box by Norma. And of course, our favorite PPU. But all these are great. And when I look at the grain weight of all these, they're all 139 or lighter. And that's because of the grain weight that these rifles would have shot military and would have been dialed in for that grain weight. So these are equivalent to the military rifle. We're going to go ahead and shoot these, give you an idea what the rifle does. I have set some apples down there. We got 2 cameras running so you can see the impact shots and see exactly what it does. And thank you for tuning into Mil Surp Rifle Series. Thank you. Now we're going to shoot both the Husqvarna as well as the Carl Gustaf rifles today. I'm not doing a comparison, just want to show you what they do and how they function. Before we go actually into shooting, I do as I always like to do is show you guys the safety feature of the gun, how the bolt operates and so forth. So let me bring up one of them for you. This is the Carl Gustaf equipped with the sling. But note that this is your bolt, and again, it's a straight bolt, whereas if we pull the bolt straight up and back, we've now ejected a cartridge. And of course, there's a follower here which will stop you when you have fired your last shot. I'm going to push that follower down and trick the rifle into thinking there's another round. We push that forward as though there was a round in it, close it, so back and close downward, and now the gun would be in a cocked position. To put the rifle on safe, you'll notice this lever right here, and if we put that lever in the straight up and down position, we've now put it in what's called half safe. Half safe will allow you not only to put the gun in safe, but it'll also allow you to take the bolt out, and then this lever, if we swing that to the side and we're pulling the bolt back, it will bring the bolt out of the chamber area, and I'll have the bolt in hand. I'm going to go ahead and do that to show you. So I've taken the bolt completely out of the receiver, and when in half safe, I can actually take this bolt apart. Now, we're going to cover this in another series, and I know you guys have been begging me to give you the breakdown series of all the bolts we've covered, and I promise you I will do that, just haven't had time yet. But we will get to those. Look for those videos, and we'll teach you exactly how to take this bolt completely apart. Really smart to do that when cleaning these, to keep all the parts clean and free of used powder. It can be corrosive at times, especially if you're shooting an older powder. It does have salts in it, and it could corrode your gun. Even though these guns are made not to corrode, good idea to go ahead and do that. We put the bolt back in. We have it on half safe. Again, we covered that. Now, the other position. The other position would be in full safe. So as if you were in the shooting position, if we flip that lever over completely to the right or on the same side as the bolt, again, we are in safe, but also I cannot remove the bolt. This is called full safe. So I can't remove the bolt is completely locked up, and the gun absolutely will not fire. So know how your gun operates, know how to put it in safe. And when shooting, as I always say, know your target before you pull the trigger, know what's behind you, and know what's going to stop that round. And hey, nobody gets hurt. Now, we're going to go ahead, knowing this chamber is empty, we're going to go ahead and, for demonstration purposes, we now note the lever is going the opposite direction of the bolt. And now, if we pull the trigger, had there been a round in, gun would have went off. So again, know your safety, know how the gun operates, and as you're in the shooting position, so nobody gets hurt. And I always like to tell you guys, before shooting any firearm, whether it's a handgun or a rifle, always please wear your eye protection as well as your ear protection. And please know what you're shooting at, as well as what's going to stop that round, and what may be behind you. And hey, nobody gets hurt. Eyes, ears. I'm going to start off with the Carl Gustaf, or the Cut Down 96. Today we're going to be shooting the Privy Partisan hollow point boat tail round. I do have some apples set up down there so you can see the impact shots, and let's see exactly what this rifle does. These particular rounds are 120 grain, so they're a little on the lighter side, but they should perform very close to a 139 grain bullet. Let's see what happens. I'm going to do a 3-shot group. Again, Privy Partisan, hollow point boat tail, 120 grain. On hot. Now, one thing I'll absolutely tell you is, from firing this gun, there is virtually no recoil at all. However, as you can tell, a lot of power. These guns will certainly stop, as I said before, medium to small game, whitetail, coyote, so forth and so on, as well as they are very accurate. Let's try it again. As I cycle through these, action is extremely smooth. There's no chamber adaptation or drag on this bolt. The tolerances are very tight, however, you don't feel it. It works like butter. These guns would be terrific in the field for fast action shooting, as well, again, as I said before, accuracy. Let's see if we can hit one of those apples yet. 3-shot group. One thing I will say, the front sight and rear sight on the tangent sights that I have are both black. Not to make an excuse, but it is hard to see your front sight. And one of the comments that I had in a previous post was any suggestions on anything I could do for this type of rifle for hunting. And I like to take the front sight, maybe put a dab of orange nail polish or some sort of paint on it. I like nail polish because nail polish can be easily removed with nail polish remover, and it doesn't hurt the firearm. There are terrific sight paints out there, aftermarket paints that you can certainly use. Some even glow, but by changing the color of the front sight, it will help you find that front sight. Anyway, not an excuse for my offhand shooting. Let's see if we can get one. What I like to do after I've fired the rounds, and I keep them in the box, you notice that there's still fired shells here, but I take the cases that have been fired and I put them back in the box. Again, it seems like a no-brainer, but this way, you know, if you have a lot of different cartridges, as I have tons of these, Mil Surp cartridges are usually all different, you will not struggle trying to look at the back of the case and figure out what cartridges for what. I do a lot of reloading, and we're going to start doing some reloading videos as well when we get into that portion of this video series. But again, just a quick idea or quick tip for you: take your empties, keep them in the box. You'll know one shot box, you'll know what they are, you'll know where they came from, and more importantly, you'll know the caliber. I can't tell you how many times I've had a can of empty cases and cannot find a 308 versus 6.555 versus 7.5 by 55. They're similar in length and they can be tough to point out. And if you get them in your press, when you're loading those calibers, you're in for a jam or a stop up, which can cost you time. So just a quick tip, good idea, keep them in the box, you know what they are. Anyway, let's continue shooting. Okay, we're going to try the bent bolt, see if we have better luck with this gun. I was able to strike several apples using the Carl Gustav, but let's see if this rifle does perform any better. This one does have the aftermarket flash suppressor on it, but let's see if it does any better. Again, not a comparison. If I do better with this gun, it doesn't mean that you'll do, you know, worse or better with yours. This is just a comparison between my two guns, and I am off shooting, so who knows, anything can happen. Anyway, let's go ahead and try it. I'm going to do 3 rounds, and again, we're using the Privy hollow point boat tail 120 grain round. Going hot. Let's get some. We definitely struck it twice, but didn't explode it. So let's give it another shot. Now we're going to jump over and try the 139 grain soft point ammo that I have. This is a Federal cartridge, and we'll see if we can do any better with the impact shots. Again, eyes, ears. Three-shot group. Let's get some. Oh yeah. Well, as you can see, 139 grain. Well, thank you for tuning in to Treeline Sports and our Mil Surp rifle series. Again, we would love for have you to like, subscribe, and please leave comments. We try to get back to everybody, whether good or bad. Open to objections or questions, or if you need to see a close-up of anything, we typically always reply. Next week, I'm sure we'll be having another Mil Surp rifle series, as we have a lot more firearms in our library to go. And we really enjoy making these for you. We hope you find them informative, and look forward to providing you with more information on these terrific firearms. Anyway, thanks for tuning in. We'll see you soon.